Morning tune. This is part 3. I needed to redo this. I made a mistake on the last little bit. Hopefully you caught the mistake. One of the important things is don't trust only a calculator. I should have done the calculations by hand. I obviously spotted my error, but it took a while. So I'm going to go through the same problem and then an additional one just to reinforce the steps. Okay, so you have a prescription that calls for 10 milliliters of medication, BID, for 10 days with a concentration of 400 milligrams per 5 milliliters. I was right underneath the speakers at Starbucks, so I moved. All right, so step 1 is just to figure out how much medication you need to start with. Okay, so all we're going to do is figure out how much medication. You can do this in your head already. Of course, twice a day, that means you have 20 milliliters times 10, so we know that we have 20 milliliters per day times 10 days gives us, we want 200 milliliters of medication with a concentration of 400 milligrams per 5 milliliters. Okay, so that's the total amount we need right there. There's our target. You glance here and there's 2 problems, obviously. 1, there's only 80 milliliters here. 2, the concentration has changed. So we have to deal with both of those. The first is you want to figure out how much medication is in this bottle to begin with. So if its standard concentration is 250 milligrams for every 5 milliliters, I don't know how many milligrams are actually in the bottle, but I know that it reconstitutes to 80 milliliters. You're going to cross multiply. All right, now, very important. We're just going to call this X because that's what you're used to. The opposite of timesing is dividing. Whatever you do to one side, you have to make sure you do to the other. Okay, at this point, if you want to use a calculator, you can. Just make sure you do it very accurately, because I actually made a mistake on a calculator because I was moving too fast. You're going to go 250 times 80 divided by 5. Now I'm going to do it longhand. There's a bit of a shortcut here, so I'm going to show you what that shortcut is. If you want to longhand, I'm going to take that 5, and I see right there a 25. I know 5 goes into 25 5 times. So now I've reduced that to 50 times 80. And I go 5 times 8 is 40. And then I have 2 zeros I have to account for. Now you can double check my math on a calculator. In fact, I'm going to do it both ways this time so you can see it both ways. That's 250 That's how we make mistakes. I put the wrong stuff in the calculator. 250 times 80, and then divided by 5, and you see we get the same thing. Okay, so I just found out in this bottle I have 4,000 milligrams worth of medication. Okay, now look really carefully. It actually tells you on the bottle right here that it contains 4 grams. Okay, 4 grams, which is exactly correct because there is 1,000 milligrams in a single gram. So grams to milligrams, you simply take 4 grams and you times by 1,000 and you get 4,000 milligrams. Okay, so I know in this bottle there's 4,000 milligrams. Now I told you right here, but I wanted you to see the math so that you're comfortable with it. Okay? Next question. If I know I have 4,000 milligrams, I'm asking myself now if I want how many milliliters can I get at the concentration that I want. Okay, so now you start with the concentration you want. The concentration you want is 400 milligrams to 5 milliliters. This bottle is going to give us 4,000 milligrams. And I want to know how many milliliters am I going to get out of it at that concentration. Okay. So how many milliliters could I get at that concentration? And remember, our goal is to get 200 milliliters. So we're going to cross multiply. So I have 400 milligrams times X equals X milliliters. 5 milliliters times 4,000 milligrams. The opposite of timesing is dividing, so I'm going to divide by 400. Okay, now, again, you can do this in a calculator. You're going to go 5 times 4,000 divided by 400, but I'm going to do it longhand just to be extra careful. First off, you can cancel 2 zeros here. 4 goes into 40 10 times. Last but not least, 5 times 10 is 50. So I can get 50 milliliters from that bottle of the concentration 400 milligrams to 5 milliliters. You pull the calculator up so you can see that on a calculator as well. That's 5 times 4,000 divided by 400. So 5 times 4,000 divided by 400. And we get 50 ml. Okay, so this bottle right here, now we just kind of take a step back and think of this kind of logically. at 250 milligrams at 5 milliliters, I'm going to get 80 milliliters of medication. At 400 milligrams to 5 milliliters, I'm going to get 50 milliliters of medication. Okay? Now, just logically, this is a higher concentration than this. There's more stuff here. So because it's a higher concentration, I'm going to get less liquid out of it because there's more stuff. Okay? The higher the concentration, the less the liquid. So you just kind of double check your numbers. Okay. Now we've established that this bottle will give us 50 milliliters of medication at this concentration that you want. In the storyline, we needed 200 milliliters. So at this point, I'm going to take 200 milliliters, what I want of that concentration. I'm going to divide by what I get out of that bottle, which is 50. So it's 200 milliliters divided by 50 milliliters. You are welcome to use a calculator, but I'm going to do this shorthand just so you can see a couple shortcuts. There's a 0 at the top and a 0 down below, so they cancel. Now I have 20 divided by 5, which is 4. Show you on the calculator. That was 200 divided by 50, and it's 4. So to summarize, this prescription bottle, you would need 4 of them to fulfill this prescription when you change this concentration. So let me just go over the steps. Let me change colors here. Okay. The first thing we did is we figured out, step 1, how much stuff is in the bottle. How much stuff is in the bottle. That was the first thing we did. Milligrams of medication. Next, we figured out, number 2, how much liquid could we get out of that bottle with the change in the concentration. How much liquid? That was number 2. How much liquid can we get out of a single model when you change the concentration? Number 3, after you figure out how many liquid is in this bottle is possible, the third step was to figure out how many bottles do you need, which we did up here. Step 3. So step 1, what's the amount of stuff? Step 2, how much liquid can you get with the change in concentration? Step 3, how many bottles are you going to use? I know this seems like just a lot of numbers to you, so let's do another one. I know you can do this. Just kind of rehearse it to yourself. Let's do one more so that you're comfortable. It says right here, the prescription calls for 15 milliliters of medication, BID, for 20 days. I don't know if that's a realistic medication. I'm just upping the numbers for you. With the concentration, 400 milligrams per 5 milliliters. You have this bottle on hand, which is a 100 milliliter bottle, but its dilution ratio is 125 milligrams to 5 milliliters. Again, how many bottles do you use? Let's just recap those steps real quick. ahead of time. We're going to do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to figure out how much stuff is in the bottle. Number 2, we're going to figure out how much liquid can we get out of it with the new concentration, the desired concentration. 3, knowing that, how many bottles are we going to use? Okay, those are 3 steps. Okay, first we're going to figure out how much medication we need to begin with. And of course that's 15 milliliters BID. So every day I need 30 milliliters of medication times 20. 3 times 2 is 6. I've got 2 zeros. So my goal is I need 600 milliliters of medication. That's my goal. Okay, step 1. I'm going to figure out how much stuff is in this bottle to begin with. How much stuff is in the bottle. Okay? All right. So we start with what the proportion we're given. We're given 125 milligrams at 5 milliliters. Out of this bottle, we're supposed to get 100 milliliters. So the question is, how many milligrams will that get us? Cross multiply. All right, the opposite of timesing is dividing, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Okay, I'm going to show you my shortcut, and then I'll get out the calculator. I know that 5 goes into 125. That's like $1.25. You ask yourself, how many quarters are in $1.25? And I know there's 5 quarters in there. So 5 goes into 125 25 times. Okay, now I have over here 25 times 100. That's just 2 zeros, so it's 2500 milligrams. That is the amount of stuff. Let's show you on the calculator. 125 times 100. And then we divide by 5. Again, 2,500 milligrams. Okay, now look really carefully on this label, the fine print. Believe it or not, that's already here. Take a look right there. If you look really carefully, it says right there that this bottle has already 2.5 grams in it. That confirms you did this correctly. There's 1,000 milligrams in a gram. So to go backwards, 2.5 times 1,000, you simply take that decimal, and if I have 3 zeros, I bounce this over 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And there's your 2,500 milligrams. So that's a good check. So there's number 1. We got the amount of stuff in the bottle. Number 2. Now we need to figure out how much liquid we can get out of this bottle with our desired concentration. Our desired concentration is 400 milligrams. Whoa. Yeah, got it. 400 milligrams to 5 milliliters. That's our desired concentration. And we just figured out in the last slide that there's 2,500 milligrams of medication, and we're asking ourselves how much liquid can we get out of it. Cross multiply. I have 400 milligrams times unknown milliliters equals 5 milliliters times 2,500 milligrams. Okay, from here, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I divide by 400. Okay, I'm going to do this longhand and then I'm going to show you on the calculator. Okay, so it's 5 times 2,500 divided by 400, but I can kill 2 zeros. So technically it's 5 times 25 over 4. You're going to get the same answer. I'm going to show you both on the calculator. So 5 times 2,500 equals, divided by 4, I get 3125. Excuse me, I just made the same mistake as I did last night. It's not divided by 4, it's divided by 400. That's why you have to be really careful when you use a calculator. That was 5 times 2,500 divided by 400. There it is, 31.25. Or, here's the short version, 5 times 25 divided by 4, 31.25. You get the same answer. So out of this bottle, I'm going to get 31.25 milliliters of medication. Okay, so just to kind of recap here, this bottle at 125 milligrams to 5 milliliters is going to give you 100 milliliters of medication. If we increase the concentration to 400 milligrams to 5 milliliters, we're only going to get 31.25 milliliters of medication. Now that makes sense because this is a higher concentration. And the higher the stuff you have, the lower the liquid you're going to get. Okay, so now the question is, knowing this, let me get some space here. We're almost done. Step 3 is, how many bottles are we going to use? Okay, so from our prescription, we figured out we need 600 milliliters of medication. That's what we need. We need 600 milliliters of medication at this concentration. Each one of this particular bottle is only going to give us 31.25 milliliters of liquid. So if you were using this, you would only add 31.25 milliliters to get that concentration that you want. So if I need 600 milliliters of medication, I'm going to divide by what each bottle would give me, which is 31.25 milliliters of medication. 600 divided by 31.25. And I need 19.2 bottles here. 19.2 bottles to fulfill this prescription using this particular bottle. So obviously, you're going to do the whole leftover thing. You need approximately 20 bottles. I hope this was helpful too.